Hello, everyone, and welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast, where we talk all about passive investing, real estate, and all the money moves that you can make while working your W2 so you can establish your financial freedom. Here to talk about their W2 journey, your hosts and amigos, Nick Coulter and Xavier Marin. Hey, man, how you doing today? What's going on?
Doing all right, man. Just hanging out, chilling. Today, I think, is truly the first day of winter in Minneapolis. So woke up to a nice 18 degrees outside. Had to go take the dog out. So I actually had to put on freaking jacket, sweats, still rock the Crocs though. And yeah, man, it's life is good right now. What about you?
So it's 52 degrees, and when I went outside to go get the trash cans, I also wore all those things. So maybe I should soften up a little bit. California, I'm cold. I mean, nothing's new, man. We've been recording like back to back to back, so nothing's really changed. I will at least say I'm heading down to San Diego tonight after work. I'm super stoked about that. We're going to get our Airbnb listing live. So, like I said earlier, you'll get a sneak peek before all the listeners do, because I'm looking for feedback on it. But nothing really crazy, man. Just packing up, getting the house ready to be out of here for a couple of days. I'm going to miss my little kitty, though. She's been my buddy since I've been down here alone.
How long could you stay by yourself for?
Like 3 or 4 days just normally. So I'll be back like Tuesday night and then hang out with her and then leave again, I think like Friday or something like that. So
nice. Cool, man. Well, Nick, who are we talking about today?
Man, we are talking to a very inspirational person today, Jess, as I like to call him, because that's how you introduced him to me. And that's how he refers to himself.
And that's also his name. Yeah.
And that's also his name, as I like to call him. No, just really exciting episode from Jess. I mean, it's interesting. We're meeting a lot of people that are doing really well in the industry, and they all seem super down to earth. We got a little philosophical in this episode with Jess, which I loved, because you know me, I'm a big like, what's going on in the world, in terms of what you can contribute as a person. So I really enjoyed the episode. He talks a lot about his experience and everything. I would say personally for me, the thing I'm taking away was just really fired me up was the partnerships. So he scaled in his W-2 for 5 years before leaving through partnerships, and they were very successful for him. He learned a ton, and he didn't do it perfectly the right way, which is kind of something I'm like tripping up on in my mind, is I need to have the perfect partnership laid out before I trust another person outside of UX. So I need to get past that if I want to continue to grow. So I just got to figure out what to do in that front. What about you, man?
Or you could just, have your sole focus just be on me. That's also okay. No problem from this end.
It is right now.
What I took away from his episode was I loved his concept of failing forward. So he didn't wait to have all the information needed to make that first move and make that first step. He started with new construction build. And then from there, he just started asking questions to people he knew. Hey, I just knocked this out. What's next? After you completed that, what's next? So he didn't wait to have all the answers, and he just went ahead and dived right in and got into it, which was really great to see, because sometimes that's the best way that you can learn. You can learn so much, I know, about books and audiobooks and things of that sort. That's great. But until you actually start doing it is when you truly start learning. Oh, look who just made a special guest appearance there.
First appearance on the podcast for my cat, because I just let her out of the bathroom and she's now wanting some direct attention.
Oh, all right, man. Well, hey, let's get to it.
All righty, guys. See you in a bit.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast. We have today Jess White, one of our guests today. Jess, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude, super pumped to have you on. I know that you and I connected last week at MM5. It was great to catch up with you. You and I met back in New Orleans 2021 for BP Con. So that was a really good conference, really good time. But yeah, man, would love to dig into a little bit more about your background and your story. So for the listeners that don't know a whole lot about you, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'll start with my background probably 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm currently 30 years old, just turned 30, hit the mark. And back in 2017, 2016, I just really didn't enjoy what I was doing. My current job, it was not an enjoyable experience, to say the least. And the crowd I was around was pretty rough at work. And I just knew there was something more out there that I wanted. Like I really wanted to travel. I really wanted flexibility. And I knew what I was doing really wasn't giving me that flexibility and freedom. I was traveling pretty much nonstop with my job. It was really hard to even make commitments or plans. Someone would say, "Hey, do you want to go hang out next Tuesday?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I can. And so lo and behold, not to go the cliche route, of course, someone said, you should read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I did. And I read it in an afternoon. And of course, my fiance at the time, she had got home from work, and I said, babe, you're not going to believe this book I just read. Like, started explaining it to her. I was like, we're going to buy rental properties. And she goes, no, we're never going to buy rental properties. And I was just kind of devastated. I'm like, oh, no. And so I spent the next year and a half trying to convince her that we were going to buy real estate. And during that process, I spent educating myself and learning as much as I possibly could. And I was really inspired by someone, a relative of mine, that was doing new construction, and they were just killing it. He had gotten fired from his job the year before, and I thought that was like the end for him. It was really hard, but it ended up being the best thing for him. And the guy started killing it in construction and rental real estate. And I'm like, how do you do this? Like, how is this a thing? And that's really what inspired me to get going. So I had a conversation with him, and he just started explaining. Before really I knew what the BRRRR method was back in 2017. He was explaining cash out refinance and how you can buy rental properties. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And so after that, I spent the next year really being kind of frustrated. You know, like right before you get started, you're like I want to do it, but I don't know what to do. That angst you feel. And I totally understand where people are when they feel that feeling. It's very frustrating because you want to take action, but it's almost like you can't. And finally, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to find a duplex. And of course, I still had that analysis paralysis, and everything just seemed like, well, if I buy it, everything's going to break and I'm going to go broke. And then I remembered he was doing new construction. And then my dad at the time, he built one house in his entire life. Back in 2008, he was inspired by some family to do that. He did it, ended up losing money, quit, never did it again, and went back to his job. But I remember it. I was like, man, he did new construction. So I talked to my dad, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about, instead of me trying to find a duplex, let's build a house. Like, we'll kind of figure it out together. And he was like, okay. He was unemployed at the time, and so I figured I could just pay him for some labor and help me manage it. This was while I was living in California, working a W-2 job. And so I leveraged my W-2 income and went to a local bank, had no idea what I was doing, but every move I called someone that I knew and said, all right, this is what I want to do. What do I do next? Well, you got to call this banker. Okay, I did that. What's next? And then I would do that. And then, just kind of fail forward, really. And so my first deal was a new construction deal, which is kind of counterintuitive. Most people, they don't really do new construction. That's something I do later down the line, but it's just kind of what we knew. And we did a new construction. I kind of thought I was maybe going to sell it, maybe going to rent it. And we did it, and it went pretty dang well. Long story short, I could go into the details, but that's another story. We figured out really how to do it with nothing down with this local bank, just because of the amount of money they would give you, and we could build it for less than they would give us. And so at the end of the project, my dad, he had kind of learned it. I had kind of learned it. I was inspired. He goes, all right, you ready to sell it? And I'm like, no, I want to rent it out. And everybody thought I was crazy for renting this new, beautiful home out. It was a 3.2, 15, 20 square foot. Like, oh man, someone's going to trash it. And they didn't. We ended up getting a really, really good tenant for like $1,750 at the time. They ended up being good family or good friends of ours, which was probably not a good idea for most tenants, but this worked out. And I loved it. And as soon as we finished that one, the first rent check came in. And then I realized I want to do it again. And so we did 2 more, and I was able to leverage my W-2 income out in California. I was doing this remotely from California to Texas. And the job really, really helped me get these builds. Otherwise, it would be a huge ask to go to a bank and just say, I want to build a house. I don't really have any income. And so that was a big benefit for me. And I was able to make California money and then use that money in Texas, which obviously worked out for my benefit. And so after that, I took a little break from new construction, started partnering with people on deals, and kind of snowballed from there, started really networking, educating myself, got completely obsessed with it, and worked my job for another 5 years. And I'm now up to about 33 rentals, or almost now close to 6 million in gross value. And I left my job 14 months ago. But that being said, I actually really did enjoy my job. The only reason I left it, I had a lot of really terrible things happen. My dad passed away of COVID in 2020 in his mid 60s. And that was really, really tough for me. Still is, obviously, to this day. We just hit 2 years of losing him. And my wife and kids ended up moving to Texas in an effort to be close to my family. And so I was flying back and forth from San Jose, California to Austin, Texas twice a week. Did that for almost a year and a half, and it was exhausting. And so finally, I just kind of said, to hell with it, quit my job. I had enough to give me a basic quality of life, per se, from the passive income, and went all in on real estate. If it wasn't for all of those tragic, hard events, I probably would still be at my job. In fact, 2 of my business partners are still at that job, and we talk every day. We talk possibly for 1 to 2 hours a day, because there's so much flexibility in that job. And fortunately, they're able to leverage that income from the job in our partnership, and it benefits me still to this day. So that is the general summary of where I'm at today.
So I think there's a lot of powerful messages in there. I have like 6 things written down. I want to touch on all of them if we can. The first thing is more of just an observation. You said you bought this new construction deal, and then everyone was telling you you're crazy to rent it out. Isn't it interesting how the negative stories of real estate spread like wildfire, but no one wants to listen to the person that bought a house, rented it out, and made 12 grand in rents over the mortgage in a year? That story doesn't spread like wildfire, and you don't think, oh, that could be me. You hear the story about someone burning the house down and you owning the complete rebuild of it. It's like, that's what real estate investing is. I'm like, because I felt that angst that you described. I felt the same way just in a house hack in a 4-bedroom house in Redlands, California. I was freaking the F out. Because I was like, there's just no way I'm going to get renters to go in here. And I was losing my own mind because of all the people around me were like, oh, that's a bad idea. You're going to live with strangers from the internet. They're going to murder you in your sleep.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. You're so right on that.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the partnerships and that scaling? Because obviously you don't have an unlimited amount of capital as a W-2 employee. You have seed money. And what I found is like you have seed money for your first 3 or 4 deals, probably, maybe a little bit more if you make more and go out of state, if you're in a higher paying area. How did you start to develop those partnerships while working a W-2? Because that's basically you're managing a relationship in a business, you're managing a business, and you're working a full-time W-2. And at that time, sounds like you were a father and a husband. So how do you balance all of that and create those relationships?
How do I create the relationships that turned into partnerships? Mm-hmm. So, man, I'm so obsessed with this game of real estate and financial freedom. It's almost like this gospel of real estate I spread to everyone I meet. And so there's this guy, Robert Arroyo, we're partnered up, and he had started the job I was at, and he was telling me some goals. Like he just got done working a job at ADT, making, not a ton of money, installing security systems for years. And he was saying, man, he found out I had a couple of rental properties at the time. This is 2017. And he says, man, Jess, my goal is to I want to own 2 houses by the time I'm 50. And he thought that was the craziest goal ever. And of course, me starting to learn about real estate, I explained to him, I was like, man, what if we could really 10x that goal? And I said, if you really want to do it, I will show you how to do it. And it sounds corny, but I really, really do enjoy helping people attain financial freedom that are hungry. Nothing makes me happier. I feel like it's my calling as a person, because once you can kind of get money out of the way, you can really start to focus on the important things in life and really make a difference in the world. And I saw some hunger in him. And so I gave him some books to read. And he was kind of like me. He reminded of me when I first got started, even though I only had like 2 years of experience at this time, at the most. And every time I would tell him to do something, he would come back and say, all right, I did that. What's next? Well, okay. And I was explaining to him how to find deals. Of course, deals to him were, he would send me a lead on Zillow. I'm like, well, that's not a deal, dude. And he would just honestly kept pestering me about all this. And he said, man, we should partner. And I was so against partnerships because I used to be a Dave Ramsey fan. And I remember hearing his voice in my head saying the only ship that never sailed was a partnership. And so
that's an amazing quote. I've never heard that before. That's fantastic.
It is. I was so hesitant on partnering with anybody until finally one day he actually brought a pretty dang good deal to me. And I talked to my wife. I'm like, I think I'm going to do it. She thought it was kind of stupid, but I did it. And he just kept bringing deals and value to the partnership. And we expanded. There was another guy at my work kind of did the same thing with. We became a little tribe, I guess you could say, and just obsessed about real estate. And we just started bringing deals to each other and putting them in our LLC and growing that really quickly. And that's really how I started building those relationships, was just helping people that I saw were hungry for change. And I really had no ulterior motives on that. I just wanted to see them succeed. And it ended up working out really good for me, in my favor. But that's kind of how I started building those relationships.
How did you change your? Because I'm also in the same space as you with the mindset of the partnerships. Not the fact I'm like fearful of using someone else's money to get into the game. I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with a partner, because like, I'm going to be honest, X is the only person I've ever trusted to this level to like actually get into a business with. And he tried to get me to buy deals with him a couple of years ago. I was in the financial position. And then now I've bought my San Diego house. I'm trying to get him to buy deals with me. But other than that, like, I can't imagine investing with anybody else besides him. Like, how did you change yourself in the mind to get over that, to know, okay, I can trust these people and go in and start a business?
For better or worse, I've always been a very trusting person, trusting of other people. And maybe to my detriment, I guess it's because I grew up in a really safe home. Nothing bad really happened to me early on. I didn't think people were out to get me. And so I just assumed everyone was honest and things were going to work out. And I will say this, we've had some bumps I've had a couple of partnerships and there's been bumps, and that's okay. If they were on this podcast right now, I would say the same thing. And they would be like, yeah, we've had bumps. And accepting that is normal, that it's not this perfect harmonious relationship that's going to go on in perpetuity. There's going to be times when you fail to write out expectations and you're going to be like, well, I did this amount of work. Why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? Or I've been carrying more weight than you recently. And I don't know.
Well, it's literally like another relationship, right? It's, well, not a romantic type, but it really is figuring out, what are your strengths? What are you good at? How do we balance each other out? How do we communicate about certain things, right? If they're upset about something, hey, what's going on? You have to be really dedicated and involved in those partnerships in order for it to grow, right? Because what ends up happening, if you end up being pretty passive about it, or you end up ignoring things and don't address it, then things just kind of blow up. And then now you're stuck in a position where like, all right, I don't like you, you don't like me, but now we have this asset together. What do we do moving forward?
Yeah, there's beef, but you own $500,000 in real estate together. It's like, what do we do going forward?
Or worse, even more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jess, quick question. I want to go back to, I know when you talked about your new construction deal, partnering up, how were you able to get your wife on board? So I know you mentioned that at first she was pretty hesitant about wanting to do getting rentals, and then about the partnerships. What do you think changed for her, for her to start seeing like, okay, sounds like this is possible, this can be done?
Yeah. And that's a big hurdle a lot of people struggle with that are married and in relationships is, well, my wife, or to be honest, I even see it on the other side. My husband doesn't want to do this. I used to think that wasn't possible, but I'm seeing it more and more now. So getting her on board was hard. I did it the wrong way. And I want to preface this by saying I have a phenomenal relationship with my wife today. And that took a lot of work. But getting to the first deal caused a lot of friction in my marriage and my relationship. She did not want to do it. It was one of those things that I wanted it so bad that it was like, I'm just going to ask for forgiveness versus ask for permission kind of thing. And unfortunately, that's kind of the route I went. I was like, man, I'm going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do. And that was a really, really bad idea. So do not do what I did, because that could have ended much, much worse. Fortunately, it worked out because she started seeing that, okay, maybe I'm not an idiot. The rent check started coming in. And then on the second one, she's like, okay, yeah, we'll do this. And we worked out a lot of that stuff from me kind of just jumping in and just being like, yeah, whatever, I want to do it. But don't follow what I did. I'm actually not a very good example of that.
Did your wife have anybody in real estate that she was close to, like family members, anything like that?
No, my wife worked in property management, and she only saw the ugly side of it. She saw evictions, she saw trashed units, and she was on the W-2 side of that and just saw the bad stuff. It's like, why would I ever want to do this when I could just collect a safe, steady paycheck?
Yeah, I often find, so my wife got me into financial, I'd say independence through like wanting to be in a position of financial strength. So she listened to Scott Trench's book one day out in Virginia and then gave it to me. I read it. It was awesome. Great book. Yeah. Like 10 out of 10. That's the first book I send people down when they ask me to like what to do on the journey. Then I got into house hacking. So she gave me the door to open, and then I just went super deep into the rabbit hole. And then through house hacking, it was interesting. My strategy to get her on board with living with strangers was actually, I had my best friend X that lived in Virginia with me. We're all good buds. She knows him for years. I was like, let's all move into this 3-bedroom apartment together. We're going to save on rent. It'll be that introductory step. And then we did that. He moved out and bought a house and did the house hacking, and we moved back to California. We did the same thing. So I got lucky because my wife saw the financial aspect of it through that book. But a lot of people, they don't see this in their everyday life growing up. So it's not a reality. It's not something tangible that they can reach to. So it's like, how could we do that? You know, real estate investing is for the rich is what I always thought. My mom works in commercial real estate. So I was more exposed than anybody else that I would think, and still didn't want to do it. Yeah,
I think what you just said is really good advice for people that are in a marriage, relationship, whatever you want to call it. And getting started, taking those baby steps. We'll call house hacking a baby step. Hey, babe, I really want to get into real estate. What do you think about us lowering our cost of living and effectively possibly living for free by this thing called house hacking? You interested in reading this book just to see where I'm at right now? Bingo. And then the proof of concept starts showing up. The checks come in. Your cost of living goes down. You rinse and repeat, do that a few times, and you say, hey, what do you think about maybe not doing the house hack thing anymore and just buying some long-term rentals? And then proof of concept, checks start coming in. That's a great way to do it. In fact, I will say this. One of the things we did with my wife being in property management, this is a great hack, by the way. If you want to get into real estate, maybe you don't know what to do, here's a really easy way, even if you can't acquire debt for real estate. So my wife managed a 1,000-unit property in Silicon Valley. She's the main manager. She also managed a couple other properties before she got to that one. But a lot of people don't know this. As a manager, oftentimes you can get free housing. And so that's one of your perks. It's tax-free. It's considered like a work expense. And it's a great benefit if you want to get into real estate. And maybe you want to transition out of your W-2 job into something W-2 real estate focused. Property management is a great way because you're going to learn the ropes. You can kind of pseudo house hack in a sense. And so we did that. And then I remember we got an apartment. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. A friend of mine, that's now a real estate partner of mine, Dakota, I got him a job out in California. He moved from Texas. And he's like, hey, man, you guys interested in like sharing an apartment? We can like all pitch in for rent. I'm like, actually, yes. We had an entire other bedroom. We got this place for free. We rented that other bedroom out. It was cheaper than everything else for him. All utilities included, $1,700. So we cash flowed without really having the asset, but renting, right? So you can still make money, not necessarily own real estate, and kind of arbitrage that through your W-2 job as a property manager.
That rental arbitrage that's like rental arbitrage on steroids right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and it's funny because, I got my realtor license like 3 or 4 months ago, and and I still hold my W-2 and I still do, 45, 50 hours a week there, do about 30, 40 hours on my own business. And just the exposure that I've had over the last 3 or 4 months to different people through the business has forced my acceleration of knowledge. And if you do that, I mean, you're going to be able to be adjacent to it. I mean, Ashley Kerr just talked about it on the Investify podcast, where she was saying that there was almost like a mindset shift. She was managing a property for someone that was writing $100,000 checks to buy properties and refinance and close. And she looked at it and said, I can do this. And then that changed her mindset and then gave her the education and the partnerships with brokers who start to go after deals herself with business partners, which I thought was really interesting.
So true.
All right. So I think we have an overview of the portfolio. For the most part, we heard a little bit about the number of doors and things like that. What is the makeup? Are you long-term, mid-term, short-term? Tell us a little bit more about those 33 doors.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying this. Something I've been struggling with recently is, and I'm sure, Xavier, you can understand where I'm coming from, is that everyone says you need to pick your lane. What do? Are you the multifamily guy? Are you the mobile home park guy? Are you the short-term rental guy? Like, seems like everybody that's an influencer or has some kind of significance in the real estate world, like they have their lane. And I'm honestly a little bit all over the place, and that's okay. I'm exploring my curiosity right now. So I'll tell you the makeup of this portfolio. So it is currently 4 new construction rentals, a mix of small multifamilies, so 6-unit and under. So we have some duplexes in there. I've got 2 short-term rentals that we Airbnb. And then we have a good mix of long-term single-family rentals. And that is pretty much it. We have one that we seller financed, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome. Are they all in Texas?
No, we have one in Oklahoma. And I've also flipped a house in Denver this year. Cool. So trying to get a little more outside of the state.
And just out of curiosity, Jess, why the different strategies? What led you to try different things versus just sticking to new construction like you started out, or long-term renting?
Yeah, really, it was the deals kind of fell in my lap and I couldn't say no. And they were really good. And I had people that wanted to partner on them. And I almost just couldn't say no. And that's really how.
Sweet. So, let me ask you a question. When someone brings you a smoking hot deal, what does that partnership structure look like? Are you an equity partner? Are you a debt servicing partner? Are they debt servicing partner to you? What does that typically look like in your phase of real estate right now?
Almost all of the partnerships I've done, are 50-50, pretty much even. Capital contribution, equity, everything. And I'm sure there's a better way to do it. And I'm learning that. I have raised a little bit of money from debt partners, but not a ton. We've raised, I don't know, maybe 300,000 in the past year, and we'll just pay an interest-only payment on that.
Perfect. Yeah, because that's something I'm always interested to hear. There's so many different ways to set up partnerships. And in my mind right now, I think the only way I would do it would be like 50-50. We each try to manage the deal, but I would only invest with folks that I know super well, like, X or super, super close personal friends. So cool.
Some advice I have on that is when you're doing 50-50, specifically when there's no real dedicated roles, it's just like, hey, I found this deal. You're a friend. I like you. Do you want to do it? One of the things I like doing is saying, yeah, sure, but let's hand off all of this labor to someone else, like a property manager. Same goes for bookkeeping, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have someone hired out for that, there is that resentment that's going to build. And so, yeah, I'll do the deal, but let's hire out the property management. Let's hire out the books, everything, all the maintenance. That really, really helps a lot.
Yeah, and I'll share my first partnership. It wasn't 50-50. If anything, it was more like a 60-40, 70-30 split, where I was bringing in 70% of the down payment capital. And so folks ask me like, well, why did you do that? I was brand spanking new. I was trying to get into investing out of state. And the partner that I ended up partnering with had all the experience, had the boots on the ground, had all the knowledge. And I was like, hey, I want to take off and actually start investing. At the end of the day, I'm going to be able to make that difference up through the other properties that I acquire with this knowledge versus being so fixed of trying to get it at 50-50 in the very beginning.
That's so good. And that's important for your listeners to know, is that if you want to get started, you have to do whatever it takes. If that's you bringing all of the money to someone that has all of the knowledge, and it means you can work beside them and simply just be around them, right? Proximity is power, being around those people, and you're bringing the money, then do it. Don't overthink it.
Yep.
And anything that gets you to take action and jump in there and start failing forward can and will change your life.
Agreed. All right, Jess.
We gotta clip that one.
Yeah. All right, Jess, we're gonna go ahead and transition over to our standard questions that we ask all our guests. So I'll go ahead and kick it off with the first one. What is one piece of advice and what is one piece of action a listener can take after listening to this podcast?
I think the piece of action that you can take, and the mantra that I live by, is to fail forward and put that parachute on as you jump out of the plane. You will never, ever know enough. You're never going to know it all, and you're never going to feel like you're ready. And so the most important thing you can do is to jump in there and just get started. Because both of you guys, I'm sure, can agree that action and experience is the best teacher. You can read dozens and dozens of books a year. Congratulations. You can go read 15 books on new construction, on burrs, on anything. But the only thing that's really, really going to teach you the best is action and getting out there and experience and failing. That's what I want people to know. You don't have to know it all. Get in there.
Yeah, what's interesting? I think that applies to so many things in life, because it's applied to me in the gym with working out and getting physical exercise. But then we go through a lot of leadership training as managers at our W-2. And it's so funny because you get these ideas and these philosophies of how to have tough conversations and recognize your employees and do all these things. But if you don't go out there and do it, it's not going to benefit you at all. You can read Simon Sinek until you're blue in the face, but it's not going to make any difference if you don't take any of that leadership knowledge and then try to work it, because it's in theory, right? And in actuality, you're going to have to change it. There's nuances to every situation.
I couldn't agree more, man. And those hard conversations, those hard things that you have to do, whether that's as a W-2 employee or as an investor, a book can only teach you so much. It can teach you strategies. It can help you once you actually get in that situation, but it's only going to take you so far.
All right. So for question number 2, Jess, how has your W-2 allowed you to pursue your financial goals?
It's given me a massive, massive head start on qualifying for financing. I know when I first started, like I told you, my first deal was a new construction deal. If I didn't have that W-2 stable income, there's very little chance that I was going to get approved for something like that. Now, there is ways around that as I've gained more experience, but a W-2 is going to give you the comfort of a day job and that steady paycheck to where you can start leveraging that income, but still have that comfort of the income coming in. And it allows you to start taking action and start building your little empire, building wealth. And I mean, there's so many people I see that want to quit their job and I want to quit in a year, right? I don't think that's a very good idea. Real estate is I think now that I've had some experience in it, I think if you want freedom in real estate from rental properties, it is at minimum a 5-year play, minimum. Really, it's a decade. And so income is very, very important. I know everyone loves to talk about passive income, but you have to have income.
Well, and people don't realize too, if you force yourself to an artificial timeline of a year, you're going to buy crappy deals to try to supercharge your way out of it. So you're not going to sit on the sidelines, because I'm sure when you were at your W-2, people brought you deals that were crappy and you were like, no, I'm not going to do this. But if you're pressuring yourself to get out in a year, you might take that bad deal, which is end up costing you a lot more money.
Yeah, and I think too, so many people get caught up in, I want to quit. And once I quit, then I'll be happy. And this is why I love what y'all are doing, is that, like Xavier said at MM5, I like what I do. I'm not in a rush to quit my job. If you are in a place like that in your job and you love what you do, maybe you don't love what you do, but you enjoy it, right? You don't hate going to work. You've won the game, right? Once you quit your job, there's a little bit of an existential crisis once you quit your job, because all of your structure is gone. Your steady income is gone. You think that, oh, I'm going to be happy now that I can go travel and sip margaritas on the beach. But let me tell you, the first 2 months of me quitting my job, for the first couple of weeks, it was great. I got on an antidepressant 2 months after that. Of course, I was going through a lot of crap with, losing my dad and everything. But having too much idle time, I got so lazy. I wasn't working out. Drinking too much, like so many things, right? And it's fun for a season, right? But as a human being, you are meant to work. You're meant to work when you quit your job because of real estate, and you're meant to work right now. Work is good for you. It's good for your soul. Exercise is good for your soul. You don't exercise to get to a point where you don't have to exercise anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You make it a lifestyle. And so that's actually kind of when I got into endurance sports, started training for an Ironman, once I got in that little pit of despair, because I knew that having some kind of discipline, having that exercise regimen is good for you. Working is good, but if you're not having fun, what the heck is the point?
Well, and I think purpose is so important for human beings. And we just talked to Justin Camber yesterday, and he was
I love Justin.
High level executive, crushing it, doing super well, quits his job. And he told us on the podcast yesterday, he was like, the first 2 months I felt like a piece of shit. Cause I was like, I had this structure. I knew exactly what to do from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. Then 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. was my job. Then 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. was my stuff and working out and physical act. And he had all this planned out. Then it was, you wipe out 9 to 5, and he was not getting anything done. He couldn't focus. He was having trouble staying on top of his tasks, knocking things out. He's like, well, did I just turn into an idiot overnight? And it's like, no, you need to provide yourself that purpose, because the purpose is often quit the job. Then you have to come up with a new why. Why are you doing all of these things? Why are you working hard? Because human beings live to fulfill a purpose, whatever that may be.
This is turning into a really, really good episode, because this is stuff I'm really passionate about. Me and Justin shared a room at BPCon in San Diego, and we talked about a lot of the stuff. And I talked to him about a lot of the stuff before he quit his job. And I said, Justin, you're going to have an existential crisis. It's going to be hard. You've been at Amazon for I don't know how many years, almost 15 years. And you're going to go to all of a sudden doing whatever you want. And it's actually really tough. You have to get used to it. But Justin's a really, really good friend of mine. And I'm really proud of him where he's at now. And he's another great example of making that switch and kind of really experiencing the same road bumps I experienced and starting to get out of that.
Were you the guy that told him to do Toro to keep himself busy?
No, I did not.
Okay, because he referenced you.
Idea.
He was like, a friend told me to just buy these Toro rental cars because I'm going to have too much time on my hands as soon as I quit my job. So I just listened to him.
Yeah, I think the agent thing is good, which I started doing as well. I never want to be like a full-time agent, but surprisingly, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed getting listings, and it's fun. I've done, I think, 7 or 8 in the past few months, and it's just kind of snowballed. I didn't think it would ever come to that, but.
Nice. All right, Jess. So I got the next question for you. What's the one thing you would have done differently in the past with your W-2 income?
Man, I'm thinking. I feel like I did a decent job at leveraging my income. I want to say there's something I could do differently. There's always something I could have done better. But I was maximizing all the retirement accounts. I was living pretty frugally. I guess saved more. But I mean, I really was, dude. I was a penny pincher, and that's something I've had to let go of. I was pretty greedy too.
I'm the same way. My wife is like, hey, can we go get new chairs for the Airbnb listing? It's a really nice house in San Diego. You know, it's high value, high end. People are going to be in there. And I'm like, no, the chairs from the previous Airbnb are fine. She's like, they're $70 a chair. And we need 4 of them. Don't be an idiot. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
That's funny. Well, you know what's funny is I was telling someone about this the other day, and I used to be so frugal that the guy I shared that apartment with, Dakota, be like, hey, man, I'm going to go to the store, go down the Randall's down the street and get a 6-pack of beer. He's like, yeah, sounds good. I was like, you want to split it? Yeah, sure. And I would immediately send him an invoice for like $4.78 specifically. And if he didn't pay me within like 8 hours, I was like, hey, bro, I sent you an invoice on Venmo. He's like, really? Like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, because you're not going to pay me back. And so I've had to really let go of that. And that's been a process, but I'm getting better at that.
Do you want to tell the listeners, X, about our rule of Venmo?
What was it? Anything below? Was it anything below 20 or 10?
Anything below $10, like we can't Venmo each other. So like we go to Starbucks and this dude over here would be trying to Venmo me like $4.65. And I'd be like, I'm not going to accept this fucking Venmo because I don't want to have to send you a Venmo when you buy me a Bud Light at the bar next week. Like, I don't want to deal with that. Just let it balance out. Don't be a mooch and I won't be a mooch.
Dude, I love that. That's such a good idea because I've had a lot of those Venmos and mainly the request from me to other people.
Well, I'm the type of person too that I don't want to owe anyone anything. So I'm just like, here, just have my money. It's cool.
Yes.
And the first time I did it, Nick was like, I'm going to punch you the next time you Venmo anything below $10. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. Until this day, it still holds up.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, we only do that amongst each other. My wife and I have like our finances, like we have a split pool. So like she gets hers, I get mine of like spending money liquid. And then the majority of it goes into the joint account that's all saved and stuff. And best believe if she like buys a pretzel or something on my dime, I'm like, hey, when are you going to send me that $5? So I still haven't figured that part out, but we'll see.
Sounds like we relate on a lot of notes on this stuff. So that's funny.
Exactly. All right, so I get the weird question, Justin. Would you rather be able to shrink down to the size of an ant or be able to grow to the size of a skyscraper?
An ant, because I just recently watched Ant-Man for the first time, and I thought that was the dumbest movie ever when I saw the commercials come out. I'm like, this is so stupid. I hate all the Marvel and whatever they're called movies, and didn't want to watch it. And so we were in Belize last month on vacation, trying to find something somewhat kid friendly for my 5-year-old and 2-year-old to watch. And my wife says, let's watch Ant-Man. Great. Of course, the kids fall asleep. I'm still watching. I'm like, we're watching the second one tomorrow. This is so good. So, an ant. That's my answer, because Paul Rudd made ants look really cool for some reason.
Well, and I think people don't realize too, see, because I'm a huge fan of these types of random questions and the deep thought that goes into it. I always tell people big tree fall hard. So if you're a skyscraper size, you're going to take a bad tumble down. If you're an ant, you take your human strength and multiply that by 6, see, because you shrink down same strength. So these are the things that are running around in my mind at night.
That's true. You can also see a bug that can walk across the water. It's not because they have superpowers. It's just because of surface tension. Mm-hmm. And they have little benefits like that you would never think of. So great point.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. X, what are you choosing?
Well, now I feel like I have to do an ant, No. Yeah, being as big, I mean, once he turns that large in the movie, as you've seen, right, when he becomes this huge guy like skyscraper size, like, you move so slow. Like, you can't get anywhere or can't do anything. So that doesn't sound really appealing to me. So I would choose ant as well.
Perfect. Yeah. All right, Jess, fantastic conversation today, but I know our listeners are going to want to hear a little bit more about you, want to get to connect with you a little bit more. Where can the W2 amigos and amigas out there be able to reach out to you?
They can find out more about me on Instagram and TikTok at Investor Jess. And also I have a podcast called Pursuing Financial Freedom, and it's all about hearing other people's stories on their road to financial freedom. Some people are there, some people are on their way there, and some people are well over their financial freedom number. And that's another resource.
Awesome. Well, Jess, it was great having you on the podcast, man. Thanks for jumping on, and we'll hope to reconnect soon.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, that was our episode with Jess White. Really great content, really great guy, crushing it right now in the real estate space. Nick, what's one of the things that you took away from his episode?
Yeah, so I'd say the partnership that he had with his wife, and kind of how he messed up and didn't do it the right way, and it probably could have ended worse for him. Then he had to work on his relationship, had to figure out a bunch of stuff and bring her on board. And then we kind of talked strategy on how to do that, right? Like, do baby steps, get your partner to see some proof of concept, let them know you're not risking their future and your child's and your kid's future. So I think that was really interesting. And I think probably, a show topic we will want to have in the next coming couple of months, just because it's so important. Your spouse is your partner, and that's probably your most important partner in a business like this. And you got to make sure they're on the same page. It's something my wife made easy for me because she got me into financial independence, and then I got her into house hacking. So I was super smooth for me, but not everyone's going to go through that journey. What about you, X? What are our listeners taking away here?
Yeah, I love the concept about, well, at least his mindset regarding staying in your lane. So you'll hear a lot of either influencers, people on social media that talk about, hey, pick a niche and go after it, which is great. Yeah, you should, pick a niche and try to focus on that. Where Jess took a different route where he didn't stay in his lane. He essentially pivoted as opportunities were coming to him. So he's invested in new construction, long-term rentals, multifamily, short-term rentals. So he's been able to pivot pretty darn well. And that's because he was analyzing the properties and the deals that were coming to him, right? He just didn't say, nope, I'm not going to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to focus on something else. He looked at the numbers. He looked at the partnerships, like, you know what? This makes the most sense. I'm going to go after it. So that was a really great takeaway, because also it gives you flexibility, right? Because sometimes if you're so zoned in on just one particular thing, there's pros and cons to it. One of the cons is going to be that you're going to miss out on maybe some opportunities that people are presenting to you just because you're so dialed in on just that one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we appreciate your time today. If you can, go visit Jess at his social media. Go hit him up at his podcast. Your amigos might be making a guest appearance on that show as well. So please check out those episodes. Show him some love. Fantastic episode today. Guys, please give us a follow on Instagram, TikTok. Give us a follow on the YouTube at the W2 Amigos. Obviously, too, if you can and you would be able to leave us an honest review on whatever platform you're listening to. It really makes a difference for us. If you want to reach out to me directly, the Five Family, Instagram and TikTok, and hit me up if you need any help in Southern California with the real estate market. What about you, X?
For me, Xavier Moran _ at Instagram and TikTok, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.